In 550 BCE, under the leadership of Cyrus the Great, the Persians defeated the Medes and established the Achaemenid Empire. A few generations later, this state evolved into a vast empire encompassing Iran, Egypt, Anatolia, and North Africa. The military superiority of the Persians and the strength of their armies played a significant role in the establishment of this empire in the region. Possessing one of the most powerful armies of the ancient world, the Persians rose to military prominence by establishing the Achaemenid Empire in 550 BCE. Their kingdom rapidly expanded geographically. However, this expansion brought along responsibilities and threats. The territorial acquisitions and the Persians' continuous expansionist policies meant more borders to defend. To ensure security, a need arose for a strong, well-organized, and well-equipped army. Initially, their armies consisted only of Iranian warriors. As the Persian state grew into a vast empire stretching from Central Asia to the Danube over time, the number of nations joining the army began to increase. Thus, an organized army system consisting of Persians, Medes, and other Iranian communities was established. The Persian army was divided into units based on the decimal system. According to this system, the army consisted of units of tens, hundreds, and thousands. A unit of 10 soldiers was called Liadataba, and a unit of 100 soldiers was called Satabadi. An ala, composed of 1,000 soldiers, was called Hazar Abam. And when 10 Hazar Abam came together, they formed units of 10,000 soldiers called Ha-Varaban. The most elite unit in the army, mentioned in ancient Persian writings, was called the Immortals. Referring to these elite warriors, the texts say, they were called the Immortals because if one of them died or left due to illness, a new soldier would be appointed immediately. Thus, their number always remained at 10,000, neither less nor more. In addition to central forces, the army included the provincial armies governed by satraps. Satrapal armies were loyal to the central king and were responsible for learning about taxes and fulfilling military service obligations. The loyalty of these armies to the central kingdom was crucial for maintaining peace and order within the empire's borders during peacetime, as they served as local law enforcement. The core of the army consisted of noble Persians and Medes, forming a professional army generally referred to as Spada. The Spada Corps comprised infantry, cavalry mounted on horses or camels, charioteers, and archers. Additionally, the Immortals, consisting of noble Persians and Medes, were also part of the Spada Corps, as they served as the king's close guards. In addition to the satrapal armies and the Immortals, other armies formed by the subject peoples of the empire complemented the Spada Corps. Furthermore, garrison armies stationed in forts and strongholds were included in the army along with reconnaissance units. The needs of the garrison troops in cities and rural areas were met by satraps. In return, these garrison units ensured the country's security, making the forces ready in case of threatening situations. Garrison commanders were appointed by the king and directly accountable to him. One of the most important factors contributing to the success of the Persian army was its continuous development. For example, after encountering Greeks, Iranians began to incorporate Greek mercenaries into their armies. These Greek soldiers received a fixed monthly salary, and their food and accommodation needs were covered directly by the state treasury. The opportunities provided by the empire led many Greeks wanting to earn money through military service to join the army. Especially from the 4th century BCE onwards, Greek soldiers gained prominence in the Persian army and became a constant part of it by the time of Alexander. Moreover, Greek soldiers gaining experience in the army were gradually integrated into the Iranian aristocracy over time. Although the Persians made significant investments in mercenary soldiers, the Spada Corps, constituting the real strength of the army, always remained of great importance. In this regard, the well-trained nature of the Spada Corps was inevitable. The Persian Empire mandated military service as a compulsory duty for all classes. In other words, military training held great significance for the Persians. According to the historian Herodotus, a child was taught only 3 things from the age of 5 to 20: horseback riding, archery, and telling the truth. On the other hand, the renowned philosopher Xenophon stated that military training for young individuals began at the age of 16 to 17, lasting for 10 years. A Persian soldier would commence military training in groups of 50 when still young. These training sessions included essential and vital skills such as hunting on horseback and on foot, archery, spear and javelin throwing, and marching in challenging weather conditions. By the age of 20, a young person who completed the training could join the army either as infantry or cavalry. Elite candidates received training for both roles. Infantrymen were equipped with a short sword called Achaemenid, a wooden-handled metal-headed mace, a spear with a shaft, and a quiver filled with bronze or iron-tipped arrows. Additionally, from early times, war axes were commonly used in Asia and the Middle East. These axes had long, slender handles and sharp edges. Due to their lightweight, infantry and cavalry could comfortably carry the axe with them. Hence, axes became a frequently preferred type of weapon. Additionally, their sharpness allowed them to easily pierce helmets and armor, causing significant damage in close combat. Another favored weapon was the bow. Persian arrows were made with triangular bronze heads attached to reed or thin rod shafts. 3 feathers were attached to the arrows for accurate shots. Arrows, being lighter than axes, couldn't penetrate shields or armor easily. Therefore, they were mainly used against unarmored targets. Spears were one of the most preferred weapons for spear soldiers. Long spears, 2.5 to 3 meters in length, were used by palace guard units. These spears, held with 1 or 2 hands like a lance, were used in both warfare and hunting. In face-to-face combat, short swords were also used in addition to axes and spears. Short swords believed to be of Scythian origin were 34 to 35 centimeters long and generally made of iron. They were referred to as Achaemenids. Apart from Achaemenids, Persians also used another type of sword called kopis. The kopis had a single-edged blade protruding towards the tip. The edge closest to the hilt was concave, while the edge towards the tip was convex. This curved weapon had long, sharp edges, making it easy to stab the target and delivering effective blows in close combat. Due to its size, kopis was generally suitable for use by infantry and cavalry. It was not only used for attacking the enemy during battles, but also for protection against possible blows. Persians used various forms of shields for defense. These shields were large, rectangular, and made by combining layers of centuries-old leather. They were called sparabera, and those carrying the sparabera were known as sparabera. Sparas, from the time of Cyrus the Great to the Battle of Cunaxa in 401 BCE, were used in many wars. Another type of shield used in the Persian army was the lyre-shaped shield, hollowed out from both sides. As their surfaces were smooth, it was suggested that these shields were made of leather or metal. This shield type was carried by the palace guard units. Flags used to communicate the army's movements on the battlefield were also of great importance. Attached to long spears, these flags were usually painted in bright colors and used to maintain the formation of the army units. Each Persian commander had their own set of flags, representing their position and authority on the battlefield. The flags often featured symbols with various meanings, such as animals, plants, or religious and mythological figures. Another tool employed by the Persians on the battlefield was war chariots. However, these chariots were generally used not for attacks but to demonstrate the army's strength and authority to enemy forces. Food supplies for support unit sustenance during battles were placed on these chariots. Maintenance of the chariots was provided from the established depots throughout the empire. The expansion of the empire over a vast geography made the transportation of chariots difficult, and the marching duration of the army increased. Therefore, the use of war chariots gradually diminished. Campaigns in the Persian Empire, as in other states, were typically conducted in spring and summer. Climatic conditions were a significant factor determining the course of the war. Engaging in battle during winter was not wise, as providing food, heating, and care for the soldiers in camp or during the battle would be more challenging than in the summer. Therefore, armies generally set out on campaigns during the spring season. In regions where crossing water with horses or camels was difficult, bridges were cut, and inflated animal hides attached to trimmed tree trunks were used. The army's march usually took place during the daytime, and when night fell, camps were set up on flat terrain. If the established camp was close to the enemy, a trench was dug around the area, and sandbag ramps were constructed around the trench. A council meeting was held before the battle, and a battle plan was formulated. In battles, Persians were typically arranged as follows: archers in the front row with cavalry on their sides, supported by light and heavy infantry. The supreme commander responsible for the conduct of the battle directed the moves from a fortified and elevated position, observing the lines. Persians applied different tactics and strategies in various wars. Persian war tactics were generally implemented in an organized manner and consisted of a series of stages. The initial attack was usually initiated by archers using long bows. These archers aimed to reduce the enemy's numbers and disrupt the enemy line with a dense hail of arrows. Simultaneously, archers provided cover for shielded units, seasoning the spara, shield, with arrows and javelins to protect against enemy attacks such as arrows and spears. Archers remained behind the shield wall during defense, launching numerous arrows at the enemy immediately afterward. An archer could throw an average of at least 10 arrows per minute. This meant that a 10,000-strong archer unit could throw 100,000 arrows per minute, calculated based on the maximum firing rate. It was possible to maintain this speed for several minutes. Then, cavalry took the stage, using their speed advantage to harass the enemy and attempt to disrupt its formation. Cavalry often attacked enemy units using flaming arrows and small javelins. These attacks forced enemy soldiers to disperse to avoid heavy losses. When the commanding officer ordered the counterattack, dispersed enemy units were exposed to the onslaught of reverse cavalry. Thus, the enemy was gradually worn down by arrows and then defeated by the rapid and lethal strikes of the cavalry. For these tactics to be effectively executed, certain conditions needed to be met. The battlefield should not hinder the speed of horses and should allow maneuvering for cavalry. Moreover, excellent coordination between cavalry, infantry, and archers was crucial for the effective application of tactics. The low mobility and lack of discipline in the enemy army were also important factors that led to the success of the Persian army. However, it has been observed that all these tactics were not always successful against enemies with a robust defense system, such as the Greek army.